We have made it very clear that everything is on the table as potential responses.
Tonight, Canada's premiers meet in Ottawa to address Donald Trump's tariffs threat.
I've just been dismissed completely. I haven't even been given the option of meetings in the future.
The Congress of Aboriginal Peoples say they're being ignored by the Liberal government.
Every artist has their own path, and I had to find mine.
And a new mural in Winnipeg has helped to kickstart a Dene artist's career. Tanse, good evening. I'm Chris Nachkite. Thank you for joining us. The provincial and territorial premiers were in Ottawa on Wednesday for the First Minister's meeting. The premiers were joined by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at an afternoon press conference where, not surprisingly, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's 25% tariff threat against Canadian goods dominated the discussion. Ontario Premier Doug Ford also wore a hat with the words "Canada is not for sale," firing back at Trump's taunts against Canada. The Prime Minister was calling for unity against Trump and vowing to even cut off energy exports to the U.S. Here's what the Prime Minister had to say about the issue.
We will stand up for Canada. We will protect Canadians. We will make sure that we are there to show what this country is made of. At the same time, we've also agreed that no one region of the country should disproportionately bear the burden of standing up for all other Canadians. We have made it very clear that everything is on the table as potential responses.
Over the years, the Trudeau government has excluded the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples from various Indigenous roundtables and councils. For example, while a number of Indigenous organizations have been granted seats on the National Council for Reconciliation, CAP was left out. CAP says the latest issue is being excluded from a roundtable discussion on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, with that meeting set to take place at the end of January in Ottawa. Joining us now from Ottawa to talk more about the issue is newly elected Congress of Aboriginal Peoples National Chief Brendan Moore. President Brendan Moore, thank you for joining us. So there seems to be a persistent problem here for CAP. Have you ever raised this with senior officials in the Liberal government? And if you did, what was their response?
You know, since I've been elected as chief, I've been trying to have any kind of communication with members of the Liberal government, and I've just been dismissed completely. I haven't even been given the option of meetings in the future. Basically, like at times receiving replies, to that as if I was just a child sending a communication to the Liberal government thanking me for writing. So there's been zero communication whatsoever with the current Liberal government in regards to the missing and murdered Indigenous women's exclusion for the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples.
CAP was known as having a closer relationship with the Stephen Harper government than some other Indigenous organizations. Do you think the organization is being punished for this relationship by the current federal government?
And I'm not sure where the motivation comes from in attempting to disenfranchise the off-reserve. I know, politics is new for me. Since I've been here the last year and a half, I was at a question period where it was the Conservative government that actually brought us up as an organization that is recognized as representing Indigenous peoples in Canada. And every other party besides a few of the Bloc Québécois sat on their hands, after they recognized us. So I'm not quite sure where the motivation comes from. I'm not sure if it's pressure from organizations like AFN, ITK, or MNC, but I think it's more likely that it's divisive measures coming from the Crown in order to ensure that Indigenous peoples don't get along and gain equity in our society.
Yeah. National Chief, if you follow the polls, it appears likely the Conservatives could be elected to the government in the next federal election here. If this happens, do you think CAP will be in a better position in terms of being included in some of these Indigenous roundtables and councils?
Well, the Conservatives are the only party right now who are communicating with us and recognizing us as an organization that represents Indigenous peoples, and they assure us that we will be included in such. So I hope so, and you know, that's what we're looking for. We're looking to be included equitably as all Indigenous peoples are in these tables. So it seems like it might be, but you know, hopefully that would happen with whatever government forms after the next election.
And looking at the federal government overall and the public, does there continue to be a problem in understanding who makes up CAP and what the organization does?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we don't have a lot of capacity. We're not giving a lot of funding, and so it's a little bit more difficult for us to deal with some of the issues. I know, like, we have the pretendian issue going around, and fraud as Indigenous people, and you know, we deal with that across the board. We deal with the same issues that reserves deal with, and the government of Canada themselves, Indigenous Service Candidates, when they're trying to process status cards, we deal with the same kind of issues, but the difference is in capacity to mitigate the challenges. But at the end of the day, the organizations have a long-standing foundation of representing Indigenous peoples who's been disenfranchised by Section 35 or the government of Canada in general. And we're here to ensure that Indigenous peoples carry on their rights, even if the Indian Act decides that they've mathed out of being a 6.1 or 6.2 Indigenous person.
National Chief Brendan Moore, will have to leave it there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
The First Nations Child and Family Caring Society has filed a motion to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal in response to Canada's decision to negotiate on child welfare reform with First Nations in Ontario. Sierra Bettens brings us this brief update.
On January 7th, the Chiefs of Ontario and the Anishinaabe-Oski Nation, or NAN, announced they were going to negotiate their own agreement on First Nation CFS reform with Canada. That agreement would only apply to on-reserve members of First Nations in Ontario. In July 2024, the Chiefs of Ontario and NAN accepted an agreement with the feds that would have provided $47.8 billion over 10 years to support child welfare reform across Canada. However, in October, that agreement was struck down by the Assembly of First Nations in Calgary. This Tuesday, the Caring Society said in a news release that they're asking the CHRT to force Canada back into negotiations because Canada was trying to exclude them from national-level negotiations. A spokesperson for Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haiju says the Caring Society removed themselves from the negotiating table in 2024 and that Canada will continue to work with the Chiefs of Ontario and the Anishinaabe-Oski Nation. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And we'll be sure to follow that story with more future updates. Sad news in Manitoba. A 12-year-old girl has died following a snowmobile accident that happened last week. On Friday, January 10th at around 8 p.m., RCMP responded to a report of a snowmobile accident near God's Lake Narrows, a fly-in First Nation in northeastern Manitoba. When they arrived on scene, no one was there. However, they later found the people involved at the local nursing station. A 12-year-old boy was driving the snowmobile with a 14-year-old male passenger and 3 more 12-year-olds on a toboggan they were towing. The toboggan hit a tree stump and a 12-year-old female on it was thrown. She was seriously injured and later died from her injuries at the nursing station. The RCMP is still investigating. Police say none of the children were wearing helmets. If you have a story idea or want to share your thoughts about a story you saw here, here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story for us, let us know by sending us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to www.aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, LinkedIn, and X. And you can watch this newscast anywhere, anytime on YouTube. Follow us at APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Time now for a commercial break, but when we return, another report is calling on the BC government to do more to address the dangerous impacts of climate change. We'll be right back.
It's only going to get worse, and we have to understand that LNG is not the answer. The market is global, it's volatile, and
Thanks for staying with us. A Northern Ontario post-secondary institution will be offering a new course this year designed as a foundation course for Indigenous students. The course falls under the umbrella of Sault College's Indigenous Studies Department, which offers a variety of certificate and diploma programs. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
Seeing a lack of success among Indigenous students enrolled in diploma programs, Sault College's Department of Indigenous Studies is trying to meet the challenges some Indigenous students face when transitioning to college life.
I decided to create a one-year certificate called Bidabin, Indigenous Foundations, to have students get their feet wet in a certificate program, also explore courses that they might be interested in that could lead to a diploma program after.
Bidabin Indigenous Foundations includes classes in Anishinaabe-Moin and computer apps for business, Indigenous history, and land-based learning.
The name itself is Bidabin, and in Anishinaabe-Moin, it's when the sun rises in the east. So we decided, Dr. Michelle Sayers and I decided to name the program Bidabin because it's a new beginning for students, so it's a new start.
The Indigenous Studies Department at Sault College is designed as a learning environment that celebrates the languages, cultures, and traditions of Indigenous students. Carolyn Hepburn is the college's Dean of Indigenous Education.
We remain the youngest and fastest growing population in Canada. We can meet the labor demands that we're seeing across this country right now. So it's really role modeling for our young people and ensuring that they know what options are available for them in terms of accessing higher education and being successful in it.
Programs offered by this department are not only for Indigenous students. Stacy and Emily are both taking its specialized social service worker program.
I took a 2-year leave from the Donald Doucette Youth Correction Facility, and I cook there. So working with all of the, I noticed there was a lot of Indigenous youth that go into the facility, and working with them, I just wanted to learn more about our culture and offer more for them.
My son is Indigenous, and I'm not, so I wanted to learn more about his culture and be able to work in the field and specialize with Indigenous communities. It's so inclusive. It's very, surprisingly, I was really scared to come into this program being non-Indigenous, but it's been great and I've learned a lot.
Applications for the Bidabin Indigenous Foundations program will be accepted beginning February 1st, with the course beginning in September of this year. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Mike. There's another scathing report from climate experts in BC who are calling on all levels of government to do more to address what they say is a climate emergency. APTN's Tina House has this story.
British Columbia is not the leader that it claims to be. Initial progress has stalled and emissions are rising.
This climate action report says BC is not doing enough to protect its citizens against climate change. And at this press conference, a diverse group of advocates and leaders, including Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, have joined forces to speak up against what they say is a ticking time bomb.
It's only going to get worse, and we have to understand that LNG is not the answer. The market is global, it's volatile, and it's too dangerous and too destructive. So I think it's time that our governments woke up to that fact.
Fiona Koza is with the West Coast Environmental Law. She agrees with Grand Chief and says BC needs to take a stronger legal stance towards the fossil fuel industry.
BC is facing millions of dollars for climate damage and adaptation costs related to floods, heat waves, drought, and wildfire damage across the province and cannot afford these rising costs. The province should take legal action to hold the fossil fuel industry accountable.
And with the ongoing wildfires continuing to burn in Los Angeles, California, experts say the signs are there that we are facing even more catastrophic weather-related events if nothing is being done now. Katisha Paul is the youth representative for the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. She says she's very concerned over what she is seeing happen.
It's in our epidemiology to protect the land. We haven't sat idly. And it's things like these annual reports that will help us, commit us to taking grand actions in the face of such an emergency. It is a climate emergency. We have to change the terminology that we're using. Climate crisis. It's no longer just global warming.
Among the 10 recommendations, the report does acknowledge that the BC government has initiated some long-term strategies, but they're asking for them to do even more.
BC needs to invest 2% of its GDP, equivalent to $8.5 billion, towards advancing a zero-emissions economy and creating thousands of good jobs.
With the 10 recommendations here in this report confront the climate emergency crisis, experts are saying that government needs to do more in all levels of government before it gets worse, with them predicting a hotter and drier summer. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Photo of the day and weather is up next after the break. Plus, a new mural unveiled in Winnipeg's North End has a unique story behind it.
Today's an exciting day. We're unveiling a beautiful mural created by an Indigenous young artist, Jedrick.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Today's submission comes from Debbie Bill in Onion Lake, Saskatchewan, who took this picture of their brother Dale and his family, who made a snow sculpture of a moose. A big hi and thank you to Debbie Bill for sharing that picture with us. We now want to know how you are spending your time this winter. Send us your pictures to share at aptn.ca to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look or a gander at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the east, Charlottetown -3, Halifax -3. Cartwright -9, the Grand River -9. Quebec City -8, Gaspé -5. Ottawa -5, Sarnia -2. Thunder Bay -3, Wawa 0. Puckatawagan -23, The Paw -5. Gimli -3, Winnipeg -3. Saskatoon 2, Regina -1. Uranium City -23, La Ronge -4. -17 in Fort Chipewyan, Peace River 0. 6 in Calgary, Red Deer 1. Quesnel 3, Kamloops 1. Sand Spit 8, Smithers 4. Beaver Creek -20, Mayo -15. Norman Wells -21, Wrigley -26. Fort McPherson -28, Inuvik -21. Whale Cove -22, Arviat -18. And Iqaluit -14, Iqaluit -37, Burr. A new mural has been unveiled at Nidanoe Youth Resource Center in Winnipeg's North End through a partnership that also marks the launch of a young Dene man's art career. Our APTN intern reporter Veronica Blackhawk has the story.
The mural was planned as a response to Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action number 66.
Today's an exciting day. We're unveiling a beautiful mural created by an Indigenous young artist, Jedrick, and it really is based on the 66th call to action regarding the need for federal funding, multi-year federal funding to support youth programs.
The partnership, led by graffiti gallery Steve Wilson, worked with Nadinaway's executive director Shanley Scott to bring artist Jedrick Thorasi's vision to life.
And he does do very beautiful paintings, but he also does really in-depth social commentary on some of the big issues that we're experiencing across Canada right now. So residential schools, unmarked graves, you know, a lot of the big topic issues.
With Steve and Shanley's seal of approval, the artist was given full creative control. We spoke to Jedrick about his work and what this collaboration means to him.
I just hope I could show people that you could have a really rough life and there's people there that will help you pick yourself up and sort of change your life for the better.
What advice would you give to other young Indigenous artists looking to make an impact?
It's important to just believe in yourself and your dream. I learned that there's no set path for every artist. Every artist has their own path, and I had to find mine. So
Jedrick highlights the importance of community support, offering thanks to graffiti gallery Nadinaway and his daughter Leah. The mural aims to continue a dialogue around the importance of supporting young people with special programs as they walk their path to reconciliation. Nadinaway's efforts include Tina's Safe Haven and Safe House, both 24/7 staffed locations for at-risk youth, while Graffiti Gallery offers programming like the Artists Action Project, building partnerships with local artists like Jedrick to address the 94 calls to action through strategized mural placements.
That's the big part of it, and when someone like Jedrick can combine his artistic skill and ability and social commentary with an organization like Nadinaway, well, beautiful things can really happen as you see outside.
But the conversation shouldn't end here.
I do believe young artists need support. I actually have a lot of trouble getting support. I did find support, but I had trouble finding it.
The murals can be seen at Nadinaway offices at 650 Burroughs in North End, Winnipeg. You can find more of Jedrick's art on Instagram at Jedrick5000. For APTN National News, I'm Veronica Blackhawk.
Great job to our Veronica Blackhawk and our other intern reporter, Tyler Shingoose, for helping to put that story together. Expect to see a story from Tyler in the near future. That's your newscast for this Wednesday, January 15th. Join us again for your daytime newscast tomorrow. From all of us here, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.